Russia's illegal war on a sovereign Ukraine has raged for almost 3 weeks now. Today, President Zelensky took his case for what his country needs most in order to survive this invasion intact right to Congress, invoking images of World War II, 9/11, and Martin Luther King Jr., saying at one point, quote, "I have a dream. We need to protect our sky." Fox 40 has analysis for you now about the asks made today and America's response so far. Tab Berg, our resident Republican, is here, and from the other side of the aisle, Democrat Ed Emerson. Gentlemen, good morning to you.
Good morning.
First, President Zelensky has been regarded as just extraordinary in a lot of ways throughout this conflict, not the least of which was not taking his government into exile and staying and fighting with his people. How unusual is it, speaking to Congress the way he did this morning, the way he did to Canada's Parliament yesterday? Ed?
Well, it's the first virtual speech to the United States Congress. I believe in, and I don't know for sure, that 95% of the Congress was in attendance. People were moved. Senator Joni Ernst from Iowa was in tears as she left. I think that his message has been well honed. Please help us cover the skies. I think his video that showed about 3/4 of the way through the speech was devastating. I mean, it really showed the images of what the Russians are doing, the depravity of this attack. And I think if there was any question before, there's none now. That's what I would say.
Okay, Tab, do you think, given the video, given his presentation this morning, did he make a convincing enough case?
Well, I don't know about convincing enough, but I mean, certainly he made a very, very compelling case for more support from America. I mean, this is the first wartime address to Congress from a foreign leader since Winston Churchill. So the precedence is sitting certainly right there. And I think he really understood his audience. I mean, this time, and also in his addresses to the UK and other countries, he really tapped into what the ethos of what those countries are. You know, America loves an underdog. America loves fairness. America, absolutely is appalled by what's going on by the Russians. So I think he made a very powerful case, but as far as changing the trajectory of where the Biden administration is willing to go or NATO is willing to go, probably not. I think, unfortunately, delay will be the continued watchword of the U.S.'s response.
President Biden, America has said it would not be part of getting MiG fighter jets into Ukraine to help combat the Russian air attack. Jen Psaki yesterday saying doing so would move the U.S., quote, more directly into this war, and that any transfer of planes may be, quote, mistaken as escalatory. Air support was Zelensky's drumbeat as he spoke to the Canadians. It was, as we've mentioned, his drumbeat today. President Biden announcing after his plea that there will be more anti-aircraft and anti-armor weapons sent, but not planes. How do we keep ignoring the real ask here, Tab? And do you think that the plane transfer would be escalatory?
Well, I don't think it would be. I mean, we're sending them missiles. We're sending them, anti-tank weapons, anti-aircraft weapons. So giving them aircraft that they're going to fly, it's not like American pilots are going to be flying. Giving them Russian-built airplanes for them to fly, I don't think is too much of an ask. And I actually believe that ultimately Biden is going to capitulate on this. And I think the delay is probably not good for America's stature as the leader of the free world.
Ed, do you agree? Do you think that President Biden, will eventually capitulate to this and that it will be damaging that we waited so long?
I think capitulate is the wrong word. I think they've talked about this. I think it's on the table. I think the discussion has been held. Right now, President Biden is leading a 40-nation alliance against the Russians. We are shipping, and to Tap's point, and we're shipping heavy weaponry across the border into the Ukraine that is killing Russian soldiers. We are committed to this fight. And President Biden came out, we're sending 800 more anti-tank weapons. We're sending higher range anti-aircraft systems. I don't know. I'm going to defer to the Joint Chiefs and to the Pentagon, which is unusual for me. Usually they make some big mistakes. But I think that there is a sense And I do agree. I think something is going to change, and it's going to be unfortunately horrific. They're going to bomb a refugee convoy. I mean, there's something. This red line is moving, and I think that I'm ready to say that World War III has started. I mean, we're in a fight. We're in a fight for the world, for democracy, and everything is on the table.
Okay, you're saying that World War III has started and that there's going to be something to happen, if I'm understanding you correctly, that we just can't ignore, and we're going to get in deeper with this. I mean, the Russians have already bombed a maternity hospital. They've already hit civilian areas that right now the whole world knows are basically left, you know, just with women and children who haven't left because all the men in the country have been called to fight. So does the line get more red? I mean, aren't we there?
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry, Tab, go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think that the chances of this, we're already committed. We've given the one thing we haven't given them is weapons that can reach Russia, but there's I don't believe there's any credible claim that Putin can make that the Ukrainians plan on invading Russia. But Putin has already made statements about ethnic strife in the Baltic states, in Estonia and Latvia, which is a clear indication that he is planning to go there and rescue them, even though it's a completely fabricated accusation.
All righty, and Ed, what were you going to say? Are we already there?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, I mean, for me, and I get emotional as I sport my Ukrainian colors here, is that children are dying. I mean, President Zelensky's speech today about 100 heartbeats of children are gone, and I get so crazy on this. But we're going to be committed. We are committed. We're doing the best that we can with what we have. We have to push a complete alliance of war making power that will destroy this Russian aggression. And Putin's got to go. And I don't know how that happens, but that's got to be the lead thing. I think the Russian people need to rise up and bounce this guy out of the office.
Well, we'll have to wait and watch along with the rest of the world to see if that is what happens. We'll, of course, have you back to talk about how the U.S. actually does get out of this and how this comes to an end. All right, gentlemen, we have to put a pin in it there, but thank you so much.
Thank you.